One of the most frequent questions I receive over the past years is what tech stack powers Parqet? Let's talk about that today. Parqet is an application I'm building together with the team, and building it since 2 years. It was a side project until like 2 weeks. Then I jumped into it full time. It currently does around 300K annual recurring revenue. And the tech stack that it powers, I will talk about that today, including some of our engineering principles and things like that. I will mostly focus on tech, not all the tools that we use, but quite a few. I think with an entire stack, including how we do emails and things like that, it gives a comprehensive overview over anyone that starts a SaaS or a project like that, an online business. Let's get into it. But before I show you the first framework or technology that we use, despite the title, the tech stack does not make something successful. Actually, I think it doesn't matter at all. Like, it doesn't matter which programming language you use or which framework. The customer doesn't care, and it won't make a difference. The difference is the quality of the product, maybe the people you attract, maybe the maintenance and how productive you are. In my opinion, the best tool to use is the one you know. If you want to create a business, then you don't want to spend time learning a new programming language or learning a new framework, except if you don't know anything before that. But if you, for example, are a React expert and you want to create a new business, then I wouldn't, or a new project, online project, then I wouldn't use Vue.js, for example, just to learn it, or you have to learn it. But the goal is to do the business, not to learn a new framework. If your goal is to learn a new framework, then of course do it. So the best tool, in my opinion, is the one you know already and that fulfills all the needs. And the framework is especially and programming language and things like that, they will not determine success. There are people like Peter Levels that you might be aware of, and he has like his businesses famously are one index PHP file, which is crazy, like these huge sites. And there are others that over-engineer a lot. So I will get to that later. But having said that, let's jump into the first tool, and I will share my screen. So you see that. So we start with our web application. It's written in Vue.js. We use Vue.js 2, even though 3 is out. We use a framework on top of that is called Nuxt.js. It's focused on server-side rendering and pre-rendering and things like that. So we use Nuxt and are currently switching to server-side rendering. We have a single-page app, but we are switching to server-side rendering to make better use of search engine optimization. That is the front end of the web app, and our mobile app. Our mobile apps on Android and iOS are currently written in React Native. The one that is currently live on the iOS App Store is written in Swift, and we are switching to React Native simply to have one because we don't have the resources to basically hire a Kotlin developer and a Swift developer. So we have one developer and we have one code base for both platforms. That is why we use React Native now, and the new apps. Not sure when they will be released, but anyways, they're currently being built. The web app, so our front ends, not only the web app, but also our landing page and everything on the web is basically hosted on Vercel currently, or maybe I recently learned that it's pronounced differently, not Vercel, but Vercel or something like that. Don't remember really. So apologies to the team, to the Vercel team, if I mispronounced the name. But yeah, this is really nice. I love the company. I was an advocate since the beginning, I think, since they were called Zeit, and have been with them ever since. I noticed that, backend-wise, I get a lot of questions if we use serverless functions, but we don't. I did that in the past. In the beginning, I hosted my front end on Vercel, which I was very happy about, and I also used serverless functions for the backend. This I was not very happy about. So the serverless functions basically so I get this question also, that's why I'm answering it now. Serverless functions, at least back then, and I'm probably no expert on it, but my problems with it were we had multiple functions, of course, dozens of functions. It's a large application, and you create functions for different purposes. For example, CRUD on activities, like create an activity, post an activity, delete an activity. Could be one function, could be 3, 4. One to calculate a portfolio, which then needs other functions, etc. And one of the most annoying things were things like authentication. Like I had to implement authentication into every single function because there was nothing shared between them. And if functions needed to call each other, the authentication was done like on every call, which is just insane. If you query, for example, a portfolio, and a portfolio needs like 5 other resources calculated, right? Then you call other functions, and each of them does the authentication check again. Huge overload. And maybe I did something wrong, or maybe this is different now than 2 years ago. I don't know. But back then I had just a huge overload of things that you don't have when you have a regular backend, let's say. Yeah? You have a regular service or multiple services that handle that. So maybe serverless functions would just, it's just a different use case than what I was building, what we are building, but it didn't work for us. And I then tried to create a new backend, basically microservices, not really microservices. Let's just call it services. Some of them are large, some of them are small, and hosted them on Render. Render is, in my opinion, like Vercel for the backend. It's absolutely amazing. I can completely recommend it. We have our entire backend there, and when I basically deployed the API there, instead of multiple functions, I had one service deployed to Render. No joke, 3,000% increase to loading performance for the user, which was crazy. So since then we are there. Backend is really, really, really fast by now. We are always optimizing, of course, can still do a lot better. We will start to host our server-side rendered application also on Render. I think it will work fine on Vercel, but again, because it's server-side rendering and it needs a web server, on Vercel, again, it will be deployed to cloud function or serverless functions. And while that might work fine, Render is, works fine as well. So we switch everything to Render now, and we will test this, how this works for our front end as well. At least the web app, not all front ends, but the web app. And we'll have them on Render as well. So Vercel and Render are our 2 hosting providers basically, and Render definitely has the majority with most of the backend services, infrastructure stuff, and now even the web app. Now our backend is written in Node.js, and we use the framework Fastify. Can't really speak much about it. I mean, it's a great framework. Again, Express would have been fine as well, and things like that. But Fastify, it's fast and it works great. So no regrets there. We had a different authentication provider in the past. We used Auth0, and we just recently switched to Supabase. Now, Supabase, as the website says, is a Firebase alternative. So basically an all-in-one infrastructure backend solution. It has authentication, database, it has storage and more. We just use the authentication piece of it, so nothing else right now. We are open to test out different things, but currently we are quite happy with the setup that we have, and we use Supabase authentication currently for our authentication needs. Why did we switch? Pricing. Auth0 was okay. Very enterprisey, of course, but we have a freemium model, and the pricing just doesn't work for freemium. If every single user of you is paying, like in B2B, then that's completely fine. Then I would still use Auth0, I guess. But Supabase is not only a lot more suitable for our business model, APIs and things are just more modern and work much better. Support is faster. In Auth0, you can clearly see that there is a history, a lot of depth that is being carried. Anyways, so that's authentication. Database, we use MongoDB. So a lot of people ask me, why MongoDB, why not something else, or relational database versus whatever. I don't have a good answer there. It's not like I did an analysis of database technologies and what is best suitable. I thought it doesn't really matter what database I use. I will be in the realms of possibilities of that database technology. So I knew MongoDB the best. I knew it will be sufficient for my use case, so I used MongoDB. That was it. There is no reason against other databases at all from my side, but it works very well for us. We have a dedicated cluster. We have lots and lots of data, of course. Sorry, you probably hear my daughter. We have lots and lots of data that we store in MongoDB, and they improve a lot as well. I mean, they just introduced time series and things like that, and they will be very useful for us in the future as well. So that's permanent storage, but we also use a cache. We have a Redis. Oh, by the way, MongoDB, we use MongoDB Atlas, so it's managed from MongoDB directly. So software as a service pricing that we have there. So the dedicated cluster is not managed by us. We don't want to manage any of that. And for Redis, pretty much the same. Although you can say we manage it, but we don't really do a lot. We host this on Render, so you just deploy Redis on Render, and that's fine, and it's running there. We upgraded our instances because we have quite a few things to cache, like charts and things like that. That's lots and lots of data. But yeah, we use Redis for caching, works well. And we have a lot of messages that are coming in. For that, we use Kafka with Confluent. So managed Kafka by Confluent also, works very, very, very well. We receive 1 billion prices per month from exchanges, like price updates on securities. So that's not that much, 1 billion in a month. Kafka can do a lot more. I guess if we reach 1 billion in an hour, then we have to talk about Kafka scaling and things like that. But yeah, it runs very smooth. It's quite cheap for our small scale regarding messaging. So that's completely fine. Also there, I'm aware of like RabbitMQ and things like that, but whatever, no preference. Kafka works fine. RabbitMQ would probably be just as fine. So we just went with it. Cloudflare, we don't use that much from Cloudflare. Some of our traffic goes through it. We have our DNS there. I did most of my DNS stuff at Vercel, which is just insanely awesome to do that. I remember I was blown away when I was able to buy domains and do all this DNS stuff in the command line. But I want one service where I have all the domains and all the DNS entries, and maybe even the traffic routed through to protect against DDoS attacks and things like that. So everything is in Cloudflare regarding that. All the domains are registered there. Traffic goes through. We sometimes disable the cloud from Cloudflare, sometimes not. Depends. We have some workers there as well for we did a renaming and had to redirect all the domains and things like that. That's what we handle in Cloudflare. Pretty basic. We don't work a lot in there. It's more setup work. But our domains, our DNS entries, that stuff is in Cloudflare. Then we send a ton of emails, of course, and for that we use MailChimp, which is one of the most expensive SaaS services that we use. Just hosting, basically just keeping the email list is already over 1,000 euros a month, just by having a 6-figure email list. yeah, which is really expensive. But we are optimizing that, and we use both transactional emails and marketing emails, campaigns. For both, we use Mailchimp. For the transactional emails, we basically chose Mandrill, but they were acquired by Mailchimp, so it's basically Mailchimp transactional now. Yeah, by the way, apologies. All the sites are in German because I'm German and live in Germany. So, but you know the websites, and you will be able to find the English version. Yeah, Mailchimp, we are happy with it. I mean, it works very well. Our marketing person is able to do, as long as we put the information in Mailchimp, is able to create campaigns and offers and things like that. Basically without a developer, which is what we want, which is perfect. So it works really well. The UI, I don't really like the UI, but I've not seen, a great UI from a mail provider. Mailchimp is very confusing, I think, from a UI perspective. But luckily, the person in our team that works with it is very familiar with it, and I personally don't have to work that much with it anymore. At least not in the project of Paquette. In other projects, I currently use ConvertKit, but we are talking about Paquette today, the Paquette tech stack. So Mailchimp, we are sending tens of thousands of emails per month. Will reach six figures pretty soon. But yeah, Mailchimp doesn't break a sweat, of course. They can do a lot. Next up, payments. We use Stripe. Of course, we use Stripe. I mean, who follows me here and the YouTube channel knows that I'm a very optimistic person regarding Stripe, and I will always try to use Stripe and Stripe only. I'm just a huge fan of the company and the product, and yeah, we are using it for the subscriptions. We are also using it for one-time purchases if we have some, and we use checkout and the billing portal. Although the billing portal now, we are starting to reach the limits of what it can do, so we will probably move away from that. But we use checkout, the subscriptions, invoices, all of that from Stripe. It works fantastically. I wish we could use it on mobile, but of course there we have to use Apple App Store stuff, Apple Pay, and on Google probably the same. But yeah, no need to move away there. That is, I think, one of the best solutions you can do. Of course, I mean, it depends. Yeah, for subscriptions, I would definitely use it. If you have one-time purchases in Germany, then the invoice part becomes a problem. So yeah, I'm using that for other projects, and it's a hassle already. There are other solutions that are more fitting if you have one-time purchases and need proper invoices. We also use Grafana for some of the, let's say, infrastructure visualization, like whatever, API request times and blah, 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 things like that. So monitoring on the backend. That's great. It works fantastic. And we have quite a lot of charts. Luckily, one of our developers specifically is quite proficient in that. And yeah, we use that. We also have a Datadog account, and I'm saying that because we rarely use it. We use it to pipe our logs to it. So we only use it if we need to search our logs, which is not that often, honestly. At least not that I'm aware of. Can't speak for the entire team. But yeah, that's the only reason why we use it, because Grafana wasn't able to handle it that well. And yeah. So we just have all our logs there currently. One thing I forgot to open is Sentry. No, that's not the landing page. I'm always having trouble with the sites that are opening the dashboards directly, but I want to show you the landing page. But anyway, Sentry is what we use to catch errors, both on the web app and on our Node.js backend. So we look there for, any errors that we find, and occasionally just go in there and see, okay, there are a few errors and bugs, and we fix them. We host our software on GitHub, of course. I guess that's a given, right? Everyone does it. I know there is GitLab, but I I think I used it only when I had to at one company, but anyways, GitHub is basically what I use in every project, and I guess most people do. And you are probably all familiar with GitHub. We use Linear to track our issues. That might not be familiar to everyone. If you know Jira, you will love Linear, I guess. Yeah, it's a very, very well designed, crafted, I'd say, piece of software, and I love using it. So the entire team does. We just switched to the Pro plan for the entire team, and I can 100% recommend it. Not only Linear itself, the tool, but also the company to follow a bit, because they have really just a nice culture, at least from the outside. It looks very, very nice. Great focus on design, on engineering, the changelog and things like that, the emails that are so well designed. It's an awesome inspiration from a product perspective as well. So I'm a fan of Linear. We use Notion for documenting everything, from product strategy to technical documentation to project one-pagers, basically, everything, accounting, all of that is in Notion. Even our public open positions, all of that we do in Notion. Changelog, things like that. And Slack for communication. I guess there is not much to say to Slack. You all know that. That is the tech stack, and the software that we use. If there is something I missed or something that you are interested in, just post it in the comments. I will be happy to answer it. And now let me quickly check how long we are already recording. 20 minutes. Well, I guess we have some time for engineering stuff. There was a comment in the last video, and I also received some questions on Twitter regarding how do we do decisions product-wise, engineering-wise, what do we do and how do we do it. So I want to get a little bit into that, but what's important to know is we have not figured it out or something. We are a very small team, and what I'm telling you works for us in some cases, but we still have to improve in a lot of other areas. So we are constantly improving, and if you ask me again in a year, then things probably changed. But I can definitely tell you how we do it today, and I will also note what currently works very well for us and where we think we have problems and need to improve a bit. So one thing that always comes up, especially if you're like a solo bootstrapper or solopreneur, you just start out, you build your own project. It relates to what I said in the beginning, crafting your product and your software versus go-to-market speed. That is a balance that you have to balance. It's not like if you are spending weeks and weeks on things that the customer can't even see, like how perfect your software is, you are putting a lot of risk on your project because you don't validate what you're trying to do, right? So it's always a balance. Don't put out a shitty product, but also don't over-engineer everything without going to market. So that is always a balance. If you have the possibility to do everything perfect, and that by the possibility I mean runway, enough capital, so it doesn't really matter if it takes 1 week or 1 month, then fine. You do you. In my opinion, especially how I build businesses, how I start, it's important to validate fast and to ship very, very fast, and balance that with technical depth, maintainability, and things like that. We don't use new stuff just because it's new. That is very important, right? So just because there is a new framework, we won't switch to it. Just because someone is more proficient in React, we won't switch to it. It doesn't matter. It's there is no benefit to the user, and that the team is more productive. That's subjective. Like if you, for example, switch to React. So things like that are completely off the table, and we won't even discuss this, except if our framework is out of date for like 5 years or something. Then we can discuss it, because we probably don't find new developers in the old framework. But other than that, whatever. But in what we do, like we do take time for details in the product, because we enjoy that and we like to, delight customers and make sure things are perfect. We still have bugs and things like that, but we try to make sure that what we ship is of high quality, stable, reliable, fast. But we still want to ship fast. So we sometimes descope things and say, okay, how many users do we really have that need this? Like, is there from 10,000 users one that needs this? Let's descope and do this some other time. So that brings me to my next point, and that is impact. So what we are building, we basically try to guess or do an educated guess and find out how much impact does what we are building has on the user base or the business. And that means how many users are impacted, will it improve how they use the product, how they perceive the product, will it improve metrics for the company, that means active users, revenue, new customers, conversion rates, whatever, things like that. And also, again, perfection. Like you can spend, most developers know that you can refactor something, you will refactor it again 6 months later, you will refactor it again. Especially as you are learning as a developer, you can always refactor. You can spend years and years and years rebuilding the same thing in a cooler and more modular way, etc. But that's not the purpose of the software that you're building, that the software is perfect. How you perceive it, at least. It's what the customer sees. So that for me is the most important thing, impact on the customer. And there are some, let's say, projects that don't touch the customer. Like, for example, our migration from Auth0 to Superbase, customer doesn't care, right? So we had to do this. So this was one of the projects where, it just was a trade-off, right? We had to do this. We saved a ton of money. It didn't, like, the customer didn't perceive it. The only thing they might have perceived is that that it took us a bit longer that month to ship new things because we worked on that. And of course, there are more projects like this. We still have refactorings. We still have technical debt that we are trying to reduce. It's always a balance. And that's the same in a big team and in a small team. So you just have to try to balance that a little bit. But I would recommend to focus on impact on the customer. And if you're constantly working on things that don't touch the customer, maybe it's the wrong priority. We try to measure a lot. So if we are introducing a new feature, we are measuring like how fast it is adopted and how it's performing basically. For example, we introduced a new onboarding, so we are trying to see how many users completed that, how does it improve getting a user from sign up to being an active user and things like that. What we still have to do a bit better is to act on the results. So if we see that a feature is not being used that much, should we remove it again? Should we improve it? Should we find out why? Can we do it better? Get feedback, talk to some users, following up on what we are measuring. That is something we don't do that much. So that's definitely something we can do better. Testing is something we, for example, on the backend side, our backend developers did a really, really nice job there. If you remember last year, if you followed me for a while when building Trezor 1, there were nights that I live streamed then when I was trying to get Paquette back up and running because we had an outage and things like that. And I couldn't do a silent weekend without looking if the app is still running. It was just unstable in general because lots of users, lots of growth, and how the data was processed and everything was just not that stable. So luckily, we have now some talented developers that are much better than I am, and they did wonders to that. So it's running stable, it's running reliable. We have very good alerting and monitoring on that stuff. So all of us can sleep quietly now and rest in peace when we are not working. So that got much better, and we have a lot of testing on the backend side. We don't have that much testing in the web app yet, simply because probably I work too much in the web app. That, of course, is something I want to change as well. Get more talented people, front-end developers on the web app as well, and improve the situation there as well. The code structure, they will probably introduce TypeScript, which I'm simply not that familiar with. They will do more testing, etc. So just more reliability and maintainability. The thing is, I noticed that as well about me, is I can start things up very fast. I'm not one to maintain it and maybe even scale it from a technical perspective. It's like I focus on getting started, validating, pumping the stuff out and continue. So I think this is a very good setup to let me charge forward, test something, build something, and when it works, put a team on it that takes care of it, that builds it properly, that has a solid foundation, etc. That is something that I noticed about myself and how I do projects, and I think it's a good setup for me personally, because it's just like you need both, right? If you build everything right from the start, it takes a long time. If you want to validate fast, and it's important in the bootstrapper and indie hacker community, then stuff falls off. So in the first year, I didn't have any testing except manual. Speaking of manual, the last point I wanted to get at is how many processes do you want to automate? And that is also something, I mean, again, it depends on how big your team is and how big your company is, but I'm talking about you're starting your own company solo, or two people are developing an app. You are trying to get customers, you are trying to get your first euros in, you are trying to get profitable. Automation, in my opinion, you should only work on automation when you know what to automate. You did that manual process so many times, and it consumes so much time, and it's a repetitive task that you do over and over again. Automate or outsource. But other than that, like for example, if you have to write manual invoices twice a month, don't automate that. Like, it doesn't matter. The work to automate it. There was a really nice video of someone. It's like I taught my fish how to trade or something, or I gave my fish 50,000 euros to invest or something like that. And there was one segment of it, and he said, that is how you turn a 5-hour task into a 1-month task or something like this, because he automated something that would have taken him 5 hours of manual work. So balance that, okay? I will link the video in the description. It's really, really funny. But the important piece is do stuff manually. For example, subscription canceling, that might be something you should have a self-service in, because people including me, don't like if you have to write to support to cancel a subscription. But other than that, like deleting the account, or maybe some invoices, depending on how many customers you have, things like that, don't do it. Like, we didn't even have password reset and change of email as self-service, because I mean, if there are not 10 users that write me every day, then it's not a big deal, for us to automate or build a service against. So there's still a lot of things that we do manually until they become too much. And especially in the beginning, don't automate things that don't have a big impact. You will waste your time doing that. Get your first customers, get your first revenue. That is the priority. That was the last point. I hope you got a good overview over the tech stack and what we do and how we do it. There is, of course, a lot more to talk, especially regarding product strategy and things like that. I'm happy to share a bit more, but also want to be mindful what I'm sharing, because obviously we have a lot of competitors as well. So Sharing the latest and greatest of what we think about and how we do it is not always the best idea. But of course, I'm sharing as much as possible. So if you're interested in a specific topic that I missed today, just put it in the comments and I will either answer it in the comments or create a new video. If you in general, like again, this video was triggered because I got a lot of questions regarding the tech stack. The best place to reach me, by the way, is Twitter @tweetsofsummit. You can DM me there or send me a tweet if there is anything specific you are interested in. And this always gives me, these messages that I get, they always give me good video ideas to do. So that was it. I hope you learned something or got some inspiration out of it, and I wish you good luck on your project. By the way, tell me what you are working on. If you have a side project, if you started it, if you have your company already, or a project that you did, post it in the comments. I want to check it out, and maybe we do a session where we look at some other projects at some point. Anyways, see you in the next video, and thanks for watching. Oh, by the way, like and subscribe. You know the drill. Helps the channel out. Bye.